Hey, hello, and how are you? Welcome back to Leading the Charge, the podcast. Everybody, I'm Dom Tibbetts alongside my co-host, everybody's favorite unofficial family member, Brother Bill. We told you we'd come back in the next podcast when the Bills had a head coach, and here we are, like a week later. 9 candidates interviewed. They went with the internal one. Joe Brady announced Tuesday that he was the head coach of the Buffalo Bills. We're recording this on Friday. He held his introductory press conference on Thursday. We will talk about both. Bill, let's back it up and let's start with Tuesday. I think you and I both kind of had the same reaction to this. What was your reaction when you heard the news Joe Brady was the new head coach of the Buffalo Bills Tuesday?
I was pretty upset to start. It was just the fact of kind of like the word salad that we had been fed by Pagula and Bean, and and I mean, I agreed with some of it where like you feel like you hit this wall and you need a new outlook, and like I was all for that. Like truly, like I was sad with how it was handled. I was confused with already not cleaning house, like you're keeping Bean. But like I totally get this perspective of like it's been 9 years, you need a fresh voice, a new outlook, a new system, something new to shake it up and try to get over that hump. So my initial reaction to finding out it's another like internal promotion was not I was not very happy. I was pretty like, what are we doing? Like, we're doing the same thing. Like it's the same people in this building. So all of that mindset of like we need a new outlook kind of went out the window in my head, and I was just not excited about that. Confused, and just felt like it's like the classic, like they tell you something and they're not really telling you the true fact or the real reason why they might have wanted the change or whatever. And yeah, you just feel like it's a kick in the balls kind of.
Yeah. Listen, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. So, yeah, to your point, that's how I reacted Tuesday when they announced it was, what are we doing? Because the two guys who arguably had, I think the most popular opinion in terms of where this team had their biggest inconsistencies was on the offensive side of the ball and then in the roster construction, which fell on Brandon Beane and Joe Brady. And both those guys got a promotion. So, yeah, Tuesday was a weird one just because you're like, what the hell is this direction that this organization is moving right now? I think I just look at the 9 candidates they interviewed, and I really just strongly felt that an outside voice was needed. And maybe that's what Joe Brady brings with his coordinators, which we'll get into here in a second. But yeah, I had the same exact reaction, and it made for just, I mean, you go off that press conference with Pagula and Bean, Bill, and it's just like, what a terrible few, like 72 to 96 hours for the Buffalo Bills organization of just absolute backlash. So then we get to yesterday, Thursday, the day of his introductory press conference. I don't know how you wanted to phrase this, but I felt like Joe Brady needed to knock his introductory press conference out of the park. He needed to hit a home run in some way, shape, or form. I don't know if I'd call it a home run, but it was pretty damn good. I think I had so many people, and I'm sure you're the same way here, Bill. I had so many people text me and being like, am I a Joe Brady fan now? Like, whoa, pump the brakes. Maybe this will work out. So it is crazy, like the life of a Bills fan. Like you just ride this roller coaster a little bit. But it was, I thought it was a great press conference, given the fact of where the floor was, which was incredibly low for this organization right now in terms of public appearances. And he did, I think, a pretty darn good job given the circumstances. What did you, as we look at to yesterday, Bill, what did you think of the way Joe handled that?
I thought he crushed it. Like he totally made me flip a 180. And again, it's just the press conference, that's just talk, and the real work is like starting now and getting everything the way we need it to, get over this hump and win a Super Bowl. And like we've seen really good press conferences before. We saw Rex Ryan come in here and fire us all up and talk about building a bully and completely collapsing an already really good defense, basically. So you can't put too much into it, but he definitely flipped. I feel like the fan, take on everything where like we all were, where it's like, what the hell's happening? This is insanity. We're doing the same thing. And then he comes in and same thing. My phone's blowing up where like I was getting people like that was sick. Like I'm fired up. Like I love Joe Brady. So like I know a lot of my friends were all totally flipped, and so did I, where I was just listening and he had everything you wanted to hear. Like he paid really good respect to Sean McDermott, which like I've had my Sean McDermott issues, and I didn't love the way this was handled, but I wasn't against him getting fired by any means. And I did feel like he deserves flowers and respect for like what he did build and take us out of. And nobody else seemed to be able to do that but Joe Brady.
Isn't that kind of crazy though? I was thinking, isn't that wild that it took till, and I know Joe was on his staff and Joe was very grateful for the opportunity Sean gave him, but isn't that nuts that it took till the next head coach to finally feel like Sean McDermott got the proper send off that he deserved, not from Brandon Beane or Terry Pagula, but from the guy who replaced him.
Yep. And I'm not surprised. Truly, I'm not. Like I was just thinking about this. I think it was our podcast after the Saints game. No, maybe maybe the Patriots game. I can't remember. But it was after like James Cook had that crazy stretch of 100-yard games to start the season. And I remember bringing up like how all their talk was about like, hey, we need it to be more balanced. We can't let James is doing too much. And it's like, dude, this guy is the like leading rusher in the league right now. There should be nothing publicly said except like James is a dog. We love what he's doing for this team.
Right.
And that falls on McDermott too, because you could go back and listen to a lot of pressers, a lot of end of season pressers where like Beane and McDermott, no matter how the season's ended, coaching blunders, things like that, where Josh played insane playoff games and forced us through the season to the records that we were getting and winning these division championships and all that. Or titles, and they couldn't say a good thing about him. Like truly, like they would say like, hey, he's running too much. We can't take these hits. We can't make these mistakes. And it's like, and then you have Josh come in, and now you have a Joe Brady where like it feels totally opposite. Where I remember Joe Brady was saying something along the lines of how like, hey, when we lose, it's on me. When we win, it's on the play. Like that's the players.
Yeah.
And I don't, as much as like I like Sean and whatever, like I never felt that way with Sean. I never felt that way with Beane. Pagula, we don't really know, but it seems like he's definitely not the type to do that. So it's nice to have somebody in leadership who represented the exact opposite of that, where like he's like not afraid to maybe pass the buck of the compliments and take on the brunt of, complaints and issues, because that's what a leader does. So that got me. That was one of the things that really stuck out to me, was not only how he handled McDermott, but like just that the way he was doing that, like paying homage to this guy and not afraid to like not feeding him compliments doesn't make you look worse or take away from what you're doing. It makes you look more powerful to me. Like that's a leader. That's a guy I want to get behind.
Yeah, and I think the players responded to that well, too. Yesterday was also the first time we got to hear from Josh Allen since the season. Well, aside from his post-game press conference after the Broncos lost, we didn't get to talk to him during locker room cleanout. So yesterday was the first time we got a chance to sit down and talk to him about, the end of the season, his process in this coaching interview, his thoughts on Joe. And I think the sincerity, from Joe, obviously getting emotional, talking about the players. And you said like that bite. He says, when we lose, it's on me. When we win, it's on the players. I don't think that's anyway. I had a couple people like in comments were like, it's a little coach speaky. See, I actually think Joe Brady didn't do any of the normal like coach speak. Like nobody's going to work harder than me.
I never heard that. I never heard that with the last regime. Like, they never took blame. Honestly, like that was one of the. It's tough because we live in the moment a lot, and like Sean has done a lot. Those last two seasons of just bad rosters, it was hard to get mad at him. But I'm trying to like take a step back and remember how I felt, after
in other moments when the roster was good. Yeah.
Yes. And I remember that being a huge. I can go back to tweets of mine where like I'm pissed that he's blaming Josh. I'm pissed that he's not taking accountability and all that stuff.
It's the ride of being, like fans, just I think understanding where this organization was when Sean McDermott took over and compared to where Joe Brady is now taking it over. And another thing that, I thought a good mark for Joe, as he's talking about Sean, is that he very much recognized the fact that I'm inheriting an organization and a a team that is in way better shape than it was when Sean McDermott. I mean, literally, Sean McDermott was here to provide spark and just get this team to not be a proverbial wasteland of a football organization. Joe Brady now has to take it to the next level. And I think I respect the fact that he, didn't shy away from the expectations and the pressures that are going to be on him as well. But when it comes to the players too, and, obviously, Bill, when we did our last podcast, we saw there's a lot of players who had, their support for Sean, and our, your boy Phil was one of the guys I remember saying he stood out in his support. And I pulled up this tweet though, when you were talking, from Nick Sabato from the Niagara Gazette. He pulled Alex Anderson and a few people off to the side. This is from Alec Anderson about Joe Brady. Quote, "He wants us to know that we don't have to have our assholes so tight around him all the time. We can go walk around and be our personalities." I saw that. All of a sudden, that Ty Dunn article about, the tightness and the playoff tightness of years of guys getting to the stage and being, and maybe feeling the pressure of like, man, here we are again. How do we get over this hump? Maybe that was a deterring factor. Maybe that is something that Joe Brady fixes. You always hear that term player coach, but maybe just a more relaxed setting and letting these guys be themselves is the recipe for success. I'd also argue, though, the counter I'd have to that too is like, we talk to Deion Dawkins every week, dude, and you watch Deion, like, that guy is never afraid to be himself. And I feel like a lot of guys in the locker room kind of weren't.
I was just about to say, if that was like
maybe that's an Alec Anderson thing, but like I never really felt that many guys were reserved.
If that's a tightened up Alec Anderson, I'm excited to see what a loosened up Alec Anderson is like.
He's going to throw so many punches,
constantly rubbing his belly and all that. But I guess I could see it maybe not. And like, you have to separate the man from the coach. So like, maybe in the locker room, he seems like a really nice guy. Like he does. Like, I don't think there's any debate about that. But I could see maybe on the field, that's how they feel. Because he tightens up. Like he does. Like we all have seen it in
big time
quarters, playoffs. Like he's a totally different dude sometimes. And I have to imagine there's like especially due to have been in that locker room for so long now, like you must tighten up also. Like, you know what I mean? The coach is like a trickle down effect there. So I could see it maybe being like that, like more of like how they attack things on the field and keeping those dudes loose and having fun and getting after it and not thinking about, oh, am I going to mess this up? Maybe we have to play soft zone. Maybe we have to push back. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so I could see it from that, but I agree. Like I've never seemed like people were walking on eggshells. Like the players were walking on eggshells around the locker room and not afraid to say what they wanted or be goofy or whatever it might be.
And maybe the one guy I will say that, and this, I didn't cover him when he first came here. I'm talking about Josh. I didn't cover Josh when he first came here, but I do know from talking to Josh, he's very buttoned up. He's very polished. He's very PR savvy. He knows what to say and how to say it. And I think he might be one of those guys where this would be refreshing, because we see Josh when he does like, his videos with like Fat Perez and Bob Does Sports. And like, I see that side of him. I see him do all the golf videos with like Grant Horvat. And when he does Bussin' with the Boys, like there's that element side of Josh that we all see that we don't see inside the facilities, but we see it outside of it. Maybe we get a little bit more of that from Josh. And honestly, I'm all for it, because sometimes I get a little tired of hearing my franchise quarterback talking just pure coach speak during these 1 or 2 times we get to talk to him a week. So if that's one of the cases, I'm all for it too. The other thing that kind of stood out to me about Joe that I liked was his response to a question was like, hey, you like, how did you, I think the question was to Brandon, but then Joe was given a chance to respond to as well, was, why did you feel like a guy who has no head coaching experience was the right guy to get this team over the hump when maybe experience is what's needed? And Joe basically just was like, listen, everybody becomes a first-time head coach at some point in their career. So inevitably, it's probably going to happen for Joe. He had interest elsewhere. As I dug deeper into that, because The next step for him will be building the staff around him, building, his defensive coordinator. He's got to find, well, the reports are that he's got a new offensive line coach, a guy from Pittsburgh coming in, but a bunch of staff he's got to replace. I don't know how you feel about this, Bill. I'm okay if Joe Brady doesn't just go out getting a bunch of guys that are super experienced. Like, let's just say like his offensive coordinator, right? Which is going to be weird because I asked Joe about this. I said, what's the relationship going to be like with your offensive coordinator? You're going to be the one calling the play still. If you brought in like, I'm not saying you're going to get Grant Udinski, but if you got somebody in a like Grant Udinski type role, like a bright young offensive mind where he can kind of like have his input while Joe calls the plays, I'm good with that. Right? Like Todd Monken, the guy who took the Cleveland job, was an experienced OC, was probably going to go with Harbaugh over to the Giants. I'm like totally good if you don't get experience. I think there maybe are some roles where that favors others, but like offensively, I'm totally fine if he just gets like a young up and coming guy, a guy he believes in from, his extensive coaching tree. I don't know. I'm all for it. How do you like balance, I guess? What do you think about that philosophy?
No, I agree. I would love to have just like a bunch of fresh voices. And it kind of reminds me of like the Lions, where like Dan Campbell's entire staff was like recently retiree NFL players.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like at first you're like, this is a little crazy. I remember watching that Hard Knocks after that really bad season, and that just seemed a little like wild because they were like doing full pad practices and smashing into each other. And like, I'm like, I don't know if this staff has it, but it has worked. I mean, this year was a little weird, but the original staff worked really well. And I like that idea. I do like that. I know Jim Leonard's been leaking as like the DC, and I know he hasn't been a NFL DC yet, I'm pretty sure, but yeah. And
the way Joe Brady, because he was asked too, is like, hey, like you've never called defense. Like, what do you look for in a defensive coordinator? Because ultimately it's different from the Sean philosophy, right? Like that person's going to have a lot of autonomy on that side of the ball because it's not Joe Brady's area of expertise. Everything he described was the Denver Broncos defense. Yeah. So like short of getting Vance, like to me, it sounded like he was saying Jim Leonard without saying Jim Leonard.
He's like white dude, played safety from Wisconsin.
Yeah, was really good at Wisconsin. Muscle hamster, loved to lay the boom.
That's what I look for.
Name rhymes with Tim Shennard.
I like that idea.
And maybe the young coordinator, the young coaching staff aspect fits that central theme of like guys being looser in the locker room. Think of Alec Anderson's quote, like maybe people won't have their asshole so tight inside the locker room, apparently, so I think that'll go a long way too. I really liked Joe Brady's accountability, and it was a really tough spot to be in because his floor was so low, but also like the ceiling that he needed to get to, I think, to like flip fans was so high. And again, it's tough for me to like, he shied away from a question or two that I thought he should have answered more. But I thought it was overall a really good introductory press conference and definitely won the fan base over. The one I think of that he kind of skirted that I didn't like, which ironically came from Jay Skursky of the Buffalo News, was he asked how much of this offense was Joe Brady having autonomy to call the plays as compared to what Sean McDermott wanted the offense to be. And Joe kind of gave like a coach answer, like, no, like, listen, it's on me. The offense is always going to be on me. It's doing this, but he never directly said like, no, I had full autonomy, so it's all on me. He said it was on him, but he never said, oh, I was the one, I had sole possession. Sean did not call the plays, did not tell me how to run the offense. I did. So we're kind of left there. The other thing we got clarity on too, Keon Coleman. So Joe, he wasn't asked during the presser, but for those who didn't hear this or didn't see other reports on it, Joe, this is strange, Bill. Joe came in at around, I'd say, 2:45-ish. Matt and I had just gotten back from recording. Joe came in, did an on-the-record press conference, but no cameras, but an on-the-record press conference with us in the media room to like ask final questions. And that's like where I got to ask him about like his offensive coordinator relationship. And we got clarity on Keon to basically be like, hey, about what that your owner just said. Like, where do you go with Keon? What just happened? Joe Brady, as we kind of thought in the last podcast, he stood on the table for Keon Coleman. So that's my guy. So I don't think Keon Coleman's probably going anywhere. I think Joe Brady has to give him a chance. Josh Allen gave himself the out, said, I'm not giving up on 0. But Josh Allen doesn't have to shoulder the blame of that because if they move on from Keon, it's a Brandon thing. It's not Josh Allen. So we got some a little bit of clarity on that. But I thought it was interesting that Joe was like, yeah, I was one of those guys. Is there any more positive feeling, or like does this change your perspective on the way they're going to handle Keon?
It makes me feel like optimistic, maybe cautiously optimistic, but
I think you have to be cautiously optimistic. If you're going to be optimistic, has to be like 1 foot out the door and 1 in.
Yes, because yeah, exactly what you said. Like I liked what Josh said. I liked what Joe said. I like that Joe maybe took over the top accountability. Like I'm sure he wasn't the only dude pounding the table in there, and like we've seen the clips of Bean pumping his fist when Keon Coleman didn't run fast enough.
Yeah.
Which seems to be a trend. I know there's a video out there of him getting fired up that Gabe Davis is slow too. And I'm like, all right, guy, maybe let's just recruit some faster guys.
You imagine what do you think the face was when Xavier Worthy break the record? Like,
yeah. Scratch him off the board.
Just gives him the Caesar thumbs down,
Way too fast. But I like what they said. Like I like that. I mean, that kind of proves right there that Joe is not afraid to take blame, because that's like a pretty hotly contested thing right now. The fan base in love with Keon Coleman, but he was not afraid to say that, like, yeah, that was my pick. I stood on the table. I pounded the table for him. But it's on Keon. Like, I mean, he's young still. I'm not like
his best days are ahead of him. I hope for Keon and the Bills.
I don't think you go into like the draft in this offseason thinking like, okay, like here's Keon at the wide receiver 2. Like you're going in packing that room and you're hoping Keon rises to the moment. That's my hope, is that you're not going in there thinking that like these dudes are going to take a step now. Like you're going in there to replace them and then hoping that like that competitor in them helps them rise. Cause I'm fully expecting an offensive heavy draft. I'm hoping and praying for like a move. I know we don't have a lot of cap, but figure that out.
Yeah. Being said in the next 3 to 4 weeks, being said, he's got to figure out. So you'll over the next month or so, you're going to start seeing some moves leading up to the combine for sure.
I mean, I ideally I would love to see that room really like stripped to the bolts, like Curtis, Josh Palmer. Like I just don't think their contracts are worth at all. Yeah. But those dudes on those rookie deals like Keon, he's not making a lot of money.
Yeah. I think you probably keep Keon, Khalil, Shavers, and Brandon Cooks. And Shavers. Shavers will, who knows what his
could keep Cooks. I'm like on the fence with Cooks. Like he's old. I know, like he had a good. That was like being like rising.
If you got a better option, sure. Right. But until proven otherwise, I'm team right now. I'm team.
Not a bad like competition guy to have there.
Yeah.
But like he rose to the top of a room that was 2 feet tall. So it wasn't like
which ironically Brandon Cooks is about 4 feet past 2 feet, So the other thing we got clarity on too, Josh Allen, had a broken bone in his foot this whole time. Yeah. Shocker. Now, I don't think that came as a surprise to anybody, but had a little procedure. They open it up, clear the bone out. So Josh Allen says that, while he came out in a boot and crutches, but doesn't anticipate him being hindered by this injury for like OTAs in the spring. So just a minor procedure. And that's the way Bean phrased it last week in the earlier press conference, was that Josh didn't have to have anything serious. If there was anything, it was going to be minor. So a good sign there moving forward.
I wanted to make
a point
that 2 seasons ago, Brother Bill also broke a bone in his foot and kept playing through the season. So I felt very connected to Josh in that moment, listening to that press conference and understanding what he went through, knowing that like there's a lot on your shoulders and you have to power through it.
You didn't break it during a video, did you?
I did. I punted a horseshoe.
Oh no! During the Colts game. Oh shit!
And I did. I punted it once, and I didn't like the punt enough, and it hurt bad. And then I got this idea where I was like, I'm gonna put some extra padding in my shoe, and I mean, thinking back now, I'm like, this is so dumb. But I thought I couldn't find anything that was good. So I ran in my house and I took the top of like a candle, like a glass candle, and I taped it to my foot, thinking that like the glass would absorb. But now I just had a really flat, hard object. So when I kicked it, it like went straight down, and I like like my foot was propped, like there was a bone sticking up, and it was
Oh,
completely black and blue for like. Luckily, it landed on a time where I was able to get by without punting for a few. I think we had a bye week. I think we had a long stretch, like a long break, a bye week, and I had this plan for. We were playing the Chiefs, so I had a plan where like I was gonna do like a girl power type thing because Harrison Butker's the kicker there.
oh yeah,
I had like
yeah.
my wife and her like two friends be like the special teams unit, and they punted like a Harrison Butker doll or something. So I was able to skate by for like 3.5, 4 weeks.
That
And
or
I
you
was just
said to start. You had to
punting.
start kicking your opposite foot.
I had,
At that
yeah,
point.
right. I almost had to, but I went with some soft objects. I weaned myself back into some heavier punts. But yeah, there's a video, dude, and like the noise when it comes off my foot is like so bad.
It's funny, actually, you because you probably hide it because in your video, Seven Nation Army is going on in the background. So you
Yeah, you
probably
can't
really
totally hear it.
people can't hear the glass
I had to
shattering
cut
or
it very
bone crushing.
abruptly too, because as soon as it happens, I like fall down and like I'm like holding my leg.
The agony. Well, good. He played through the injury. But yeah, so that was Josh Allen, and brother Bill obviously has fully recovered from his foot injury. He is punting
So Josh,
things.
Josh, if you're listening, if you need any tips, I've been through it, so I can help you out.
All right, we get to kind of last thoughts here, Bill. My thing I want to end it on with Joe Brady is that I truly am I'm a big fan of talk is cheap. I love that phrase
Yeah.
because I do think talk is very cheap. I think they could have hired Clint Kubiak, like everybody, like the more popular choice everybody wanted, and they would have had a better initial reaction. But I also think that Clint Kubiak could have gotten up there, had the same kind of aura and presence that Joe Brady had in the delivery of his introductory press conference. And I still would be sitting here confidently, I think, saying talk is cheap. Clint Kubiak has to go prove himself as a head coach. And I think Joe Brady has to go prove himself as a head coach. That being said, I feel so much better about Joe Brady being the head coach of the Buffalo Bills today than I did 48 hours ago. So it's a new era of Buffalo Bills football. It is the Joe Brady era. Bills fans, buckle up. It's a ride. But you know what? I said this to Matt when we were talking on the news yesterday. At the end of the day, remember, you have Josh Allen.
Right.
When you need to get out of jail free card and get you out of trouble, always remember, knock on wood, you have Josh Allen. Bill, final thoughts?
Yeah, exactly what you said. Brady definitely got like the heat off the organization for a little bit. Like we're all gonna be looking at this free agency and everything under a microscope, I'm sure, but like the temperature was really high and I was feeling really upset, and I feel confident. I feel fine right now. So he did a good job. W Aura. Um, he did a really good job. He completely turned around the public perspective, and that's what a fan is, dude. Like as a fan, it's like you live in the moment. You can get mad. A lot of us were mad when Josh got drafted. A lot of us were mad when anything. But like it's your team at the end of the day. You're always going to come around, and you got to give him a fair shot. And like we all are hoping that he does exactly what he's saying he's going to do and make our lives a little happier and come next fall and winter.
And then maybe at this point next year, we are talking not about a new head coach, but hey, Bill, we're getting ready to go. I don't even know where the Super Bowl is next year, but maybe that's the conversation we're getting to have in our podcast. When you said W Aura too, I thought of like we got to do an edit like the Bills TikTok videos where like a W just appears like over your shoulder from like the brain rot videos. That was a good one. So, all right, folks, this has been Lean the Charge podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. This has been the first podcast since Joe Brady is now the head coach of the Buffalo Bills. We'll talk to you guys later. For Brother Bill, I'm Dom Tibbetts. See ya.